All right, well, it's 12 o'clock, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. If anybody is having trouble hearing me, you can go ahead and raise your hand or type in a chat at the bottom of the GoToWebinar controls. I'd like to welcome everybody to our first quarterly Dairy Sustainability Lunch and Learn. These sessions are going to take place once a quarter and are designed to give an overview of what we're doing with the Dairy Strong Sustainability Alliance, of which DBA and Edge are members, and also highlight a particular partner or project that we're working on. Each webinar will start with virtually the same overview that you're going to hear in just a few moments, but the partner highlight is going to change each time. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. As I said before, everybody's in listen-only mode to cut down on background noise. So we'll take questions at the end, and you can ask a question by raising your hand. There's a little waving hand icon in the GoToWebinar controls. You can also type a question in the chat screen at the bottom. You can send your chat to the whole group or just the organizers, whichever you're comfortable with. With that, we can get started with our agenda. You're going to hear roughly 40 minutes of presentation, followed by about 10 to 15 minutes of questions, and we'll finish right at 1 or a little bit before. With that, my name is Maria Walt, and I am the Director of Industry Relations for the Dairy Business Association and Edge Dairy Farmer Cooperative. I head up our involvement in sustainability in Wisconsin and the Midwest and represent our organizations on the National Dairy Sustainability Circles. With that, I'll turn it over to Paige to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. My name is Paige Frauchi. I work for the Wisconsin chapter of the
Are you there to introduce yourself?
I am. Can you hear me? Oh dear. Can anyone hear me? Maria? It looks like I am unmuted, but it appears can't hear me.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, you can. Sorry. As I was saying, I work for the Wisconsin chapter of the Nature Conservancy as the Agriculture Strategies Manager. I will talk more later about the Nature Conservancy and sort of what we do in general. But my specific role is working on conservation and sustainability initiatives that involve farmers and the agricultural industry. So in that capacity, I'm involved with the Dairy Strong Sustainability Alliance to help provide some sort of conservation context for the work that we're doing, which you will hear about shortly.
Great, thanks, Paige. So we're here to introduce you to a collaborative effort taking place to make tangible improvements to the environment with dairy farms and processors. But first, let's talk broadly about the dairy community. On dairy farms, right now our biggest environmental impact is in soil and water quality. So we'll talk today about ongoing projects focused on nutrient management and soil loss. We'll also touch on other areas that have an impact, like animal care. We're fortunate to have, numerous opportunities in dairy. To kind of start, we have respected metrics that are in place, both from a state and national level. We're going to touch on those specifics later. Also, we understand our grand challenges. Some of these challenges are shared by business, manufacturing, and the rest of the ag community, so not just dairy. We also have cost-effective practices that lead to results like cover crops, buffer strips, low disturbance manure injection, and many more. And what's cool is that the public is interested in food and farming. And this interest gives more accountability to farmers. And this is actually a good thing because it's leading to funding and collaboration towards solutions that are hopefully leading towards farm profitability and preservation. And finally, there's a tremendous opportunity for measurable improvement and to share positive partnership stories with the public. The Dairy Strong Sustainability Alliance launched in August of 2016, driven primarily by the Dairy Business Association and the Nature Conservancy. And we're focused on continuous improvement across the supply chain that includes farmers, processors, and ultimately, we'd like to break into the retail space. We seek to measure results over time and then amplify those results to the customers who buy our products in order to drive trust. And along the way, we know that there's going to be other positive outcomes of our data-driven projects, and we'll get into that a little bit later. This slide shows some of the areas that we're looking to have an impact. And in sustainability, we talk about continuous improvement. And basically the idea is that, you're never going to tackle a resource issue and like all of a sudden be finished. It's a journey. So that's why we use the term continuous improvement. So these are the areas where we're looking to have an impact. And as I mentioned at the beginning, soil and water are a major focus for us right now. But this slide really represents where we are headed. And understand that these are all interwoven. So for example, there would be positive economic and social impacts with a nutrient management centered project. A lot of the work in sustainability focuses on outcomes, as it should. And the outcomes on this slide are where we want our efforts to go. To summarize, our work isn't just about getting some positive press for dairy farms. It's about tangible, data-driven projects that involve implementing new things, making some changes in some cases, and being proactive with what our communities and ultimately what our customers expect from us. It's also a platform to showcase what the dairy community is doing in a voluntary way to impact real resource concerns. And we can't achieve any of this without partnerships. This slide represents organizations that believe that what we're doing has promise. So the Nature Conservancy and the Dairy Business Association have developed pilot projects with farmers and processors at the cornerstone, and each of these organizations is playing a role, where appropriate and where they fit best. We've also aligned ourselves with some national groups, some are listed here, who have developed metrics and other tools intended to be used at the ground level. So, we're not attempting to recreate anything. We want to be kind of a clearinghouse or a toolbox for platforms that exist on the national level and bring these tools and programs directly to the farmers and processors for which they've been developed. This is a specific call out to the metrics that we are currently working with. So some of you on the call may have some experience with some of these. I know on our farm at home, we've gone through some of them. So the farm program that's best known for animal care has a new module known as the Environmental Stewardship Module. It's been around for a little over a year. That focuses on greenhouse gases and looks at energy, feed, and efficiencies. The field print calculator is a tool that is owned by Field to Market, which uses a lot of USDA and RCS data to evaluate crop and nutrient management. As I said before, this is not just an environmental effort. So we've got the farm animal care program and other animal care metrics that we're working on. And most of the projects that we're gonna go into detail in a second are using SNAP Plus, which is our in-state nutrient management planning tool. As I mentioned before, this is a supply chain effort. We're using what we call a milkshed model, where we foster projects at the farm level. You'll see the cows, and ultimately include processors, brands, and even retail in the journey. And partners like the Nature Conservancy provide us with insight and best practices along the way. I want to emphasize, though, that these projects are grassroots. Our goal is a regionally focused milkshed that includes farmers working right alongside their processor to show improvement. And, the DSSA is not calling the shots. These are farmer-led projects that are enhanced by the DSSA with a couple key things. So if a project is part of our effort, they might get some project assistance, administration assistance. In some cases, they might get technical expertise if they are, they need specific help with their metrics and project design. And in some cases, our partners are providing funding to the different projects. So let's get into the projects. Right now, there are 4 regionally concentrated projects that are under the Dairy Strong Sustainability Alliance umbrella. And there are areas of the state where we'd like to develop additional projects. So right now you see Yahara Pride Farms, which is in south central Wisconsin in Dane County. Peninsula Pride Farms, which is in northeast Wisconsin in the Dorr and Kewaunee Peninsula area. Then the Lafayette Ag Stewardship Alliance is located in Lafayette County in Southwest. And then the Western Wisconsin Conservation Council, our newest project, is in the St. Croix County area up in Northwest. I should say that we have several other projects that are in development right now that we hope to bring into the DSSA family shortly. So with this background, let's talk a little bit about what's working and also some areas where we have unanswered questions. So what's working well? I would say that the farmer aspect is working really well for us. We have 4 distinct farmer-led projects, and I have that starred because, like I said, we have some other farmer-led projects that are going on right now. They're just not officially, they haven't signed on the dotted line yet, but we feel that's coming. But the farmer aspect, I think, is going really well. There's a lot of interest in Wisconsin, due in part to the producer-led grant program that is housed at the Department of Ag. And they've done a great job of really getting farmers excited about farmer-led conservation. So I think that's part of the reason why the farmer aspect is going well. And to be honest with you, that is a little unexpected for me. When I came into this project, I was thinking that that might be a big challenge for us. Asking farmers to do things differently, particularly in a time of down commodity prices. I wasn't expecting that to go as well as it has. And what we're finding is that farmers are just really excited about trying to be as efficient as they possibly can, looking for win-wins. So again, what's working for us is the farmer-led aspect. We have substantial acres and cows enrolled in each project, and each project is supported by tangible data-driven outcomes. Understanding that each project is a little, not every project is in the same place. So for example, Yahara Pride Farms in South Central Wisconsin, they've been going for several years. So their data coming out of their project is far more advanced than I would say the others listed on this slide. But I think they're all going in the direction of measuring the data that their stakeholders want to see, and it's all supported by science, which is great. The current questions that we have, data collection. So some of the projects have the resources to hire independent resource managers who, work with each of the farmers and collect the data. Not all the projects have that opportunity. So I think a question that we have is, who is best suited to do the data collection? Could the farmer do it themselves? Could they work with their certified crop advisor or nutrient management planner? Is there some other group that maybe would want to step on and help us with data collection? So that the data piece looks a little different for each project. And along those lines, what metrics are best? There's a lot to choose from. And, we're finding that they're not all created equal. So what's the best? Can we use multiple metrics within a project? Does everybody have to be on the same playbook? I don't know. The other question that we have right now is sustainable funding for our project, this whole initiative. Right now, this effort is 100% donated staff time from DBA and Edge and the Nature Conservancy. So at some point soon, we need to find a sustainable source of funding so that we can create more projects and get more experts involved. We really need to scale what we're doing. Next, kind of similar to metrics, involves annual reporting. When you have multiple metrics, what's the best way to compile everything so that the end result is actually answering some of your core questions and getting you closer to your goals? So, those are key questions that we have, and our stakeholders are expecting outcomes for all of this work. So those current questions are really important to us. So let's talk about the future of this work. Where are we headed? I've touched on it a little bit, but ultimately we need to scale this. So we have 4+ projects right now. What does it look like if we have 10, 15, 20 or more projects across the Midwest? In order to do this, we're going to have to see more investment and involvement from processors and brands. And ultimately, we think that innovation at every step of the way is ultimately going to lead to a sustainable dairy community. So with that, now that we have a little more background on the Dairy Strong Sustainability Alliance generally, I'm going to turn it over to Paige to introduce you to what the Nature Conservancy is doing and their involvement in agriculture. I'm just going to switch over and make her a presenter. So hang tight for just a moment.
Okay, is this showing up for everybody?
Yep, we can see you great.
Okay, and you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Excellent. So thank you, Maria, for that overview of the DSSA project. Now I'm going to talk to everyone a little bit about the Nature Conservancy in general, sort of a TNC 101, if you will, and then get into why specifically our organization is involved with the Dairy Strong Sustainability Alliance and working with farmers in the agricultural industry. So we're going to start at sort of a high level and then work our way down. I can get this to go to the next slide. 1 second here. There we go. Okay, so the Nature Conservancy is a global organization comprised of, as you can see, a few figures here on the slide, a lot of scientists, a lot of conservationists. We're present in 72 countries. We're represented in all 50 states with over 1 million members around the world. So although many people may not have heard of the Nature Conservancy, or I get asked a lot if it's tied in with the university, we're actually a relatively large organization as far as our scope and our impact, with a relatively small staff to sort of make our goals happen. So that's a little bit about our team. Our strategy revolves around 3 words: protect, transform, and inspire. So our initial work when the organization first started in 1951 really branched out of protecting special places, maybe a rare wetland, a prairie, beautiful places with high biodiversity that the founders thought were important to protect. So our work started with land acquisition, so purchasing land in these special places, acquiring easements to protect that land. So that's really been the core of our work for a long, long time. But over the years, that has started to shift a little bit, and that's where we get into the transform piece a little bit. So now we have staff working on policy initiatives to provide more funding for conservation on the ground. We have a lot of land management going on, not only on areas that we own, but also working with partners to help do prescribed burns, help with prairie restorations on other land that is important to protect and restore. And then we also are focused on inspiring the general public, people that love and value the land, because it's important to have that connection to nature, both at a business scale. So we want to inspire businesses, corporations, as well as the general public to really value nature and to utilize nature in a way that is friendly to conservation, and have that be something that is thought about sort of as a part of one's everyday life. So not taken for granted, if you will. This is really not wanting to, okay, here we go. So as I was mentioning before, our strategies as an organization have shifted over time, as they do with many organizations. So currently, our 4 global priorities that are shaping the work that we do around the world are protecting land and water, climate change, sustaining food and water, and building healthy cities. So sort of the biggest environmental challenges that are facing our world, those are the things that we want to work on and to have an impact on. Okay, so, and I'll touch on what specifically is sort of happening for all 4 of those priorities in a moment. But first, I want to talk about our collaborations, because our organization, as I mentioned, it's relatively small capacity-wise as far as staff. So we simply couldn't do our work without the amazing collaborations and partners that we have. So there should be a bunch of different logos over here on the left for partners, but for some reason they're not showing up, except for the Dairy Strong logo, which is kind of funny. But essentially, we're working with universities across the world to do research and support projects, Indigenous communities, corporations and businesses, policymakers, policy groups like the Dairy Business Association, local land trusts to help them with land acquisition or transfer land to their care, and then other nonprofits. We pride ourselves in being able to bring people together from all different walks of life or in all different sides of the spectrum to work towards common goals that help create a world in which people and nature can thrive for years to come. Oh, there they are. Okay, so now you can see a few, and this is just a handful of our partners. Forest Service, the Kohler Trust for Preservation has been a huge supporter of a lot of our work here in Wisconsin. DNR, other land trusts, tribes, lots of different partners. Specifically in Wisconsin, we have helped, since our founding in 1960, we have helped protect over 230,000 acres of land. So either through purchasing that land and owning it outright, acquiring an easement on that land to protect it, and a lot of the land we've protected has been transferred to other land trusts, as I alluded to before. So you can see here on the map the areas where preserves are located. We have roughly 11,000 acres in the Baraboo Hills area, around 2,500 acres in the Military Ridge Prairie Heritage area. We've got lands down in the southeast in the Mukwonago River watershed, and then land in the Door Peninsula, which is a beautiful part of the state. Highly recommend visiting. So that's this map shows where we own land and then also where we have projects going. And I'll show another map shortly with specifically our agriculture projects, but this just kind of gives you an overview of where we're at in the state. So back to those 4 global priorities that I mentioned earlier. The first, protect land and water, that's pretty obvious. That remains a core of our work around the world, protecting land. This is some figures for in Wisconsin, almost 65,000 acres of forest, 70 miles of rivers and streams, 48 lakes and ponds that have been protected in Wisconsin. Tackling climate change. So when people think of climate change, they may not always necessarily think about soil and forests and agriculture, but we know that there's a lot of carbon stored in soils. So forests and farm fields that utilize no-till practices can really have a big impact for sequestering carbon and helping mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. So that is an important part of our agriculture work as well. Provide food and water sustainably. This is where a lot of our agriculture work falls under. We also are working on fisheries restoration and conservation as well in the Great Lakes and then around the world, because we recognize that there is a lot of factors at play. This graphic kind of shows in a simple way how there are so many different things that impact our waters. cities, runoff from cities, farmland, the fishing industry itself. It's not all from one cause. And I like this slide because it demonstrates that we're all sort of in this together, and there's a role that each of us can play in trying to help solve some of these issues. So now back to our work in agriculture. We are working with partners in the agriculture industry, working with farmers, working with groups like Collaborators in the Dairy Strong Sustainability Alliance to do on-the-ground projects to try and make and help enable more conservation on the ground. So the map shows where specifically in Wisconsin we're working on agricultural projects. So many of these locations are part of the Dairy Strong Sustainability Alliance. You'll see the dots where our specific farmer-led projects are, and the orange is just the specific watershed. So really all over. A few of our partners are listed on here too, processor partners, as we continue to work with them to develop projects. And for those of you wondering why isn't an organization like the Nature Conservancy working in agriculture, that's something that some of our longtime members wonder. We're a protection organization. We conserve beautiful places. Why are we working in agriculture? And the reason that I always give is because if you want to have clean water and you want to protect these and conserve these special places, then you have to work with the other people who are out there managing the land. So it's very integrated. We think of it very holistically, and are very glad that we are at the table for these kinds of discussions. Okay, and our last, if I can get it to move, our last priority is building healthy cities. So our chapter, the Wisconsin chapter, is still in the very early stages of this work. We have a fellow who's working on creating a plan for what we can help with in Milwaukee. There's some great work happening already there with these partners listed on the slide. So our chapter is looking for ways that we can support such efforts and continue to help build a connection between nature and cities, and help increase the value of nature when if you're living in a city, you may not necessarily get a chance to see these beautiful places every day. So trying to help provide more of that context for people in cities, and then also increasing green infrastructure, all those kinds of things. But as I said, this work is still in the early stages, so more to come on that. And that concludes my TNC 101 presentation. We breezed through a lot of stuff there. Our organization is doing a lot in a lot of different levels. I'm certainly not an expert on it all, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I think at this time, we'll also start taking questions about DSSA in general. So I think Maria is probably working on.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm getting our, oh, sorry, everybody. We had these in here as a safety, just in case something happened, because that's like Murphy's Law, at least in my life anyway. But yeah, so we're at the question and answer portion of the presentation. And again, to remind everybody, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask your own question, or you can type it into the chat function. I see one question here from Julie. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Julie, and you can ask your question. All right, we're ready.
I don't have one, Maria.
You don't? I thought I saw your hand up.
Oh, nope, then it's by accident.
All right. Well, that's embarrassing. All right,
Sorry
anyone
about
else have a question? Let's see here. I'm going to put it back to the collaborators of the DSSA, and that's a request from Jim Wynn. So just a second. All right, so here, and Jim, I will, if it's okay with you, I'll unmute you, and if you have a question, you can ask that. Oh, I guess I'm not able to, you're calling from your phone, so I'm not able to unmute you. Any other questions? Let me talk a little bit about these collaborators for everybody. So basically you'll see on this slide, we have the 4 farmer-led projects that we talked about earlier. So Yahara Pride, LASA, Western Wisconsin Conservation Council, and Peninsula Pride Farms. And then the other partners are either businesses or associations or processors who have like officially signed on to our effort, basically, you know, because they believe it has promise. So at this point, there's not like a fee to be a part of it. It's just when you come on as a collaborator, you come on with the intention that you want to be part of a project, whether that's as expertise that you would add, or as a processor, maybe you want to get a group of your patrons together and do something. We're working with the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy on some of the metric stuff, etc. Any other questions? Again, you can raise your hand if you have them. Paige, anything you'd like to add?
Not that I could think of. Yeah, we do encourage questions, and maybe we could, one thing that we are hoping that our collaborators can help us with is figuring out some of those questions that Maria mentioned earlier. As any new organization, we've had a lot of successes, but we also have some challenges, and we have an incredible group of collaborators that we're working with currently. So we're hoping that through learning together, we can figure out some of these things and make our projects even more robust.
The other thing I should add, and I think Paige hit this, this question of why is TNC involved in this? TNC being the Nature Conservancy. You know, I guess I kind of didn't answer that for Dairy Business Association, and because this webinar was promoted to DBA and Edge members, you know, the reason why DBA wanted to get involved with sustainability is because we really see so DBA is a state dairy advocacy organization, and you know, lobbying and working directly with policymakers is a great way to make a favorable dairy community, but it's one way. There are other ways to do that as well. And we really see as DBA, one of the outcomes that we're excited about is showcasing how farmers can, if they're given the tools to be innovative, they can show how they can not only meet, but exceed some of the regulatory standards that are put in place. So for us, we kind of see this as like an incubator of ideas where we can show how farmers can make the changes that need to be made, but on their own, in a voluntary capacity, you know, using support from collaborators on this slide, other organizations, you know, NRCS, et cetera, like getting everybody together to showcase how farmers can make a lot of changes outside of regulation. Any other questions? Okay, well, let me just make sure that nobody had their hand up. Don't want to cut anybody off. Okay, so looks like there's no additional questions unless I'm not seeing something in GoToWebinar. But I just want to thank you again for joining this Lunch and Learn. The idea is, you know, you're eating your lunch and it's on a Friday, so hopefully it's a little bit of a slower day for everybody. And make sure to save the date for future Lunch and Learns on the dates. Let me get to the slide, sorry. Basically, once a quarter, we're going to have our Lunch and Learns, and we'll do the same overview, but then we're gonna highlight specific features. So at the bottom of the screen, February 8th, May 10th, August 9th, November 8th, you'll get reminders. And at any time, you guys can contact us, call us, email us, and we'll be happy to talk with you offline. The recording of this webinar is going to be posted at dairystrong.org/sustainability. So if you have colleagues you want to share it with, or if you were not able to listen to the whole session, we will post it at dairystrong.org/sustainability. Thank you again. Have a great weekend.